Hi everyone, my name is Joseph, and today I wanted to discuss the Xbox 360 digital store closure. That occurred on July 29th, 2024, so just last week, last Friday, in fact. And in case one was unaware, essentially what this means is that any game that is not backwards compatible is no longer able to be purchased digitally on the Xbox 360. So to quickly clarify, on the Xbox Series X and the Xbox One, the storefront for those consoles, they will still have Xbox 360 games. Any game that was backwards compatible is still available along with its DLC as long as it's not delisted by the publishers themselves. What's no longer available is specifically the non-backwards compatible games. I know I said that at the beginning of the video, but I just wanted to clarify that because there was a lot of confusion and still some confusion that I am seeing from the community. So hopefully that makes sense. So if one goes through my channel, they'll probably see that I tend to discuss mostly PlayStation, sometimes Nintendo Switch, and very rarely Xbox. But with that being said, I do consider myself to be more of a I do consider myself to be a fan of Sony, but I do consider myself also to be just a fan of games in general. So I do own the consoles from the major gaming publishers, and also I do have a gaming PC as well. And also, besides for console gaming, I also do play via handheld gaming too. So essentially, I consider myself to be a quote-unquote gamer in the sense that I do appreciate, or I try to appreciate games from odd companies. With that being said, though, there are some genres that I can't get into, like sports games for the most part, some fighting games, which I suppose is a sports game or part of that genre. Well, that's a different topic for a different video. So although I may not discuss Xbox or Switch, Nintendo as often as I like to, it doesn't mean that I'm not playing with those products. So that's why I wanted to do this video, just because I wanted to have a quick discussion, a nostalgic trip a little bit, just conversing about the Xbox 360. I'll be honest with everyone, when I heard about the closure, at first I kind of just took it in stride. I didn't really, not that I didn't care, I was more neutral, because I felt like all the games that I want to play, I already have them. Multi-platform games, I already have them on my PS3. The only games that I own physically on my 360 are Xbox 360 exclusives that are not available outside of that console. So like, for example, Project Slipfeed, before Lost Odyssey became backwards compatible, it was not available digitally, or rather, it wasn't backwards compatible, excuse me. So it wasn't available on Series X or Xbox One. I did purchase that physically. And also some games that don't have any trophies on the PS3, I bought physically for my 360, like Call of Juarez and Bound by Blood, I believe. So my collection for my 360 is smaller. If one goes through my other videos, I've explained in the past, it's just because I don't quote-unquote trust DVDs. DVDs and CDs, I like how Blu-rays are a little bit more, not a little bit, but a lot more resistant to scratches and a lot sturdier compared to DVDs, CDs. I do have DVDs for movies, and they do have scratches. They still do work, but they do skip, they do jump sometimes. I do remember having some issues with my old PS1 games. So again, my Xbox 360 collection might be small, but it's only because I own most of my Xbox games digitally, right, especially 360, rather than physically because of the whole media format that it's in. I actually did start gaming for the PS3 360 generation with the 360 specifically. I did not get my PS3 until I believe 2009, 2010, around that time frame. I actually used to, with my old friends and back in high school, we used to have conversations, well, not really conversations, but like silly quasi debates about which was better, the 360 versus the PS3, and I was always on Team 360. I finished Mass Effect. I also finished Dragon Age on the 360 first. When the trilogy for the Mass Effect trilogy got announced for the PS3, because back then the PS3, although Mass Effect 2 and 3 were eventually ported, it was a long time before Mass Effect 1 was ported to the PS3. So that was one of the reasons why I mostly was on the 360 for Mass Effect, because I was such a big Mass Effect fan. I never did so, although I did sell my older iterations of Xbox consoles to upgrade, like for example, my Xbox One X. My Xbox One. I did sell that to upgrade to an Xbox One X. I made the choice to not sell off the consoles completely because I knew that, as I stated at the beginning of the video, I just enjoy video games, and I knew if I got rid of my Xbox, I'll be locking myself out of, although one might argue it is not as plenty compared to Sony and Nintendo. I still believe there are series on the 360 on the Xbox platform that's still worth playing, such as Gears of War, Halo. Everyone enjoys racing games. I hear great things about Forza, and then other exclusives as well. That's available on the 360 and Xbox. So I'm a big Halo fan as well. Even if it's just one franchise, one series, I always knew that I would not sell my Xbox because of that fact. In fact, even for Nintendo, the only reason why I have a Switch to begin with and my 2DS is because of Fire Emblem. If it wasn't for Fire Emblem, I probably wouldn't be owning the Nintendo console. It's just because I'm a bigger fan of RPGs, JRPGs, RTSs, and so forth than I am of like platformers and adventure games. So despite my adventure leading me today in present time to be more of a Sony player, I still have such great memories, fun times of thinking about my Xbox 360, my original Xbox. I had the Halo edition, and then my Xbox One X, and currently my Series X. I'm having fun with my Series X because I did kind of stop playing on my Xbox as often as I used to, but since the Game Pass, it's encouraging me to try out games that I typically wouldn't check out. Like for example, I recently played Firewatch, and I completed Firewatch 2. I always heard good things about that game, but it wouldn't be something that I would purchase for myself unless it was quite cheap, like 99 cents or something like that. But I wouldn't be willing to spend like $5. I was able to finish that game, and it's actually making me excited to check out Outer Worlds. I know they're different games, different publishers, but what always kind of set me off is just because they were indie games. I personally am a bigger fan of AAA and AA games. Very rarely do I play indie games. With that being said, I do have a few like Cave Story. I am planning to buy Sea of Stars, Shovel Knight, and then so forth, right? But again, I don't have a lot of experience when it comes to indie games. So playing Firewatch just made me very excited because it's a very story-driven game. Not a lot of action. That's why I'm excited now to check out Outer Worlds, where I believe that's the same kind of gameplay, where it's more of a not a walking simulator, but you will be doing more walking than actual fighting, to my understanding. So yeah, the Game Pass really helped me to start getting back into Xbox gaming, and not through any fault of Xbox. It's just because, again, since I consider myself to be more of a Sony fan, I have all my games on my PS3 and my PS4, and then also my PS5. And it's also interesting to think about as well. If anyone is unaware, Sony tried closing their own storefront for the PS Vita, PSP, and PS3. I think 2 years ago. Thankfully, the outburst from the community was loud enough that the Sony higher ups actually heard and listened, and they went. They turned around and said they didn't realize there was still so much commitment and love for those storefronts. The closing was postponed, except for the PSP. The PSP one can no longer purchase games via that handheld storefront. But as of right now, the PS3 and Vita, those storefronts are still available. The PSN store is still accessible. With the closing of the 360 store, in case one is unaware, and I didn't do a video for this just because I don't have a lot of experience with the eShop, but also the eShop also closed quite recently as well. In fact, let me quickly look up the date. You know what? I say that, but I realized that I made videos about that, so never mind. I take back what I said. I was mostly focusing on the handheld side and the console side, though, the 2DS, rather than the Wii U eShop. So I think that's why I just kind of forgot. March 27th of last year, 2023. Actually, and since I'm up here already, let me just look up PSN store closing date. So 2021 is when Sony tried to close the storefront for the Vita and the PS3. Again, it was successful for the PSP. So 2021, 2023 for Nintendo, and then lastly 2024 for Xbox. The fact that only 2 years after Sony tried, Nintendo announced that they will be closing it, and then the 360 1 year after that, it does make me a little bit, apprehensive. Because I can only imagine Sony, the higher ups at Sony, they're probably thinking, hey, we're literally the only one from the last generation that has our storefront still open. Maybe it's time for us to also throw in the towel as well. And I hope that's not going to be the case, because I still do buy games on my Vita here and there, and on my I don't buy things digitally on my PS3, but any physical game that I do have, if there's any DLC, I do my best to complete the game. So I do have DLC, of course, for my PS3. And I have all my video games physically, but ever since I got my games, so this is going to sound very privileged, but bear with me. I only get things when they're on sale. For my Switch, I do get things both physically and digitally. My rationale is because since it's a portable system, it's really convenient just to be able to switch games on the fly. It's really nice. And also, I don't like the fact of opening the Switch's cartridge on top as well. So since I really fell in love with that, I started doing the same thing with my Vita. Any games that I have physically, I do want to get digitally. I'm not done with that yet because unfortunately those games don't go on sale. So I have like a separate fund where I just put a little bit of money into that. And once I have enough, then I'll go into my Vita library and get the digital copy. But yeah, so I still do utilize those storefronts. So when those stores finally do close, it is going to be a very bittersweet day because like with the 360 closure, like with the Nintendo closure, although it prompted me to engage with those systems more, and it prompted me to play with them more often than I typically do. It's bittersweet because that's the sweet part, but the bitter part is obviously for the fact that some of those services have been curtailed. It's no longer available. So yeah, so it's just very interesting to think about the fact that the PS3 and the Vita is the last store still standing, and it is, in my opinion, going to be very sad when they finally do close, because that's essentially going to be the end of the not last generation but 2 generations ago, and how long it stood. I think that's a testament to the great quality games that generation offered to gamers like yourselves and myself as well. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to the future because I am excited to see what Sony's plans are going to be. I keep hearing how Sony's planning to do PS3 emulation. I am curious if that's maybe a way for them to justify once we start emulating older games. Well, what's the point of having the older storefronts open? We're going to go ahead and shut that down. Or maybe they're not even related whatsoever. I'm happy that Sony got that new CEO. The old CEO did not believe in legacy games. I don't think the new CEO has that same mindset, but we'll see. But going back to the 360, I just wanted to say, although I may not be primarily a 360 gamer, nor an Xbox gamer, I do still really do adore the Xbox. I still do really enjoy the Xbox 360. And yeah, it was a great system while it lasted. I did suffer from the red ring of death. Despite that, I have my 360. You can't see it, but it's actually on the bottom of. If I move, one could see my PS3, but it's under the blanket right there. I only have a blanket because of my cat. She goes on top. I don't want her scratching the glossy surface of my 360 and my PS4. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening / watching. I really do appreciate everyone. What's your opinions and thoughts about the closing of the 360 store? Do you care? Are you like me and you're thinking about the past gaming generations? I've actually been thinking about maybe going onto YouTube and like looking up videos about just reviewing the past generations of consoles, just for that nostalgic trip. It's really interesting to see where gaming is at right now. I'm considering to do a separate video about the whole announcement of the layoffs, unfortunately, that's occurring at Bungie and other gaming publishers as well. Game Informer, which is that recently got closed. So it's just a lot of things that is making me think about the past in terms of gaming and how it's looking currently, and how I would argue it's not the way that it used to be, but that's for a separate video. Again, thank you so much for listening / watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.